On February 22, 1881, New York City received its very own obelisk, Cleopatra's Needle. Formerly standing on the river bank of the Nile next to an identical obelisk, Cleopatra's Needles were built to commemorate the 30 years that Egypt's pharaoh, Thutmose III, had been in reign. Today, we are privileged to see one of these needles on a pedestal surrounded by flowering magnolias behind the famous Metropolitan Museum of Art. After a long journey from Egypt to New York City, this obelisk finally made its way up Fifth Avenue in 1880. Taking more than 100 days from arriving to the date of its opening to the public, Cleopatra's Needle now holds the title of the oldest outdoor monument in New York City. Cleopatra's Needle was originally created around 1425 BC as a way of honoring the Egyptian gods and the power of the old Egyptian civilization. Egyptian obelisks were then stolen by the conquering Romans and placed in the Roman Empire as a way of showing prosperity and achievement, recognizing hard work and power. Today, the obelisk in Central Park holds some of the same meanings as it was originally intended to. However, the symbol and meaning of obelisks built in America before the needle's arrival in 1881 were used for funerary purposes and a way of commemorating the past. By bringing Cleopatra's Needle to New York City, obelisks around the country began to be built with the intentions of celebration and creativity rather than mourning. The obelisk that once stood in one of the oldest cities of ancient Egypt now stands proudly in New York City's Central Park. As a symbol of pride and celebration of the past, the erection of the needle in 1881 marked a turning point for the meaning of the modern-day obelisk. No longer a definite symbol of a memorial or death, the modern-day obelisk now serves the purpose of multiple meanings, whether it be a creative outlet or a way of celebrating the past. As New York City started to thrive, it turned to the Roman Empire for inspiration. The obelisk is one of the many things that New York City would soon strive for to make them the new Roman Empire. The great obelisks of Rome were mostly brought from ancient cities in Egypt. The obelisks of Ramesses was brought to Rome from Heliopolis in 30 BC, after Augustus ordered for the moving of the Great Monument. The obelisk of Thutmose IV was one of the last obelisks brought to Rome from Egypt in 357 AD, when Emperor Constantius II brought it to Rome. These obelisks were taken and used as war trophies, symbols of success. However, the Romans did not stop there and created their own obelisks, like the obelisks of Domitian, created in 80 AD after a fire destroyed the large part of Rome. After the obelisk fell, it was erected thousands of years later in 1649 and used to celebrate the glory of Pope Innocent X. With all of these obelisks for New York to look up to, it would make sense that they would want an original one as their own. The structure of the obelisk was not a new concept to New York City or America. It was just used in a different way. Where did the American concept of the funerary obelisk that dominated America before 1881 come from? There were many monuments in the form of an obelisk before 1881. However, most of them were used as a marking of a burial spot and as a way of mourning someone's death. In 1804, Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of Treasury, was killed, and New York City mourned his death by burying him under a small white obelisk in the Trinity Churchyard. The Thomas Addis Emmet obelisk was dedicated in 1827, and while Thomas Emmet was not actually buried under the monument, it serves the purpose of remembering his death. The Worth Monument, located in New York City, was dedicated in 1857 to General Worth, a famous military hero who died in 1849 and was buried under the obelisk. These monuments are just to name a few of the numerous obelisks used for funerary purposes. Many people see the Egyptian civilization as somewhat dead or a lost civilization, so it makes sense that while the obelisks were used to show achievement and power in the past, the meaning was somewhat changed as a way of remembering and mourning. It wasn't until the needle's arrival in 1881 that the meaning of the obelisk started to return to its original intent, and people started seeing and building obelisks in a positive light. When Cleopatra's Needle arrived, it created interest and attention that could not go unnoticed. Around 4 years after the ancient needle's arrival to New York City, the Washington Monument was erected to commemorate and celebrate George Washington's leadership greatness. Obelisks started being built all around the country and were used in formal ways, like the Washington Monument, and informal yet still celebratory, like the Luxor Obelisk in Las Vegas. More recently, an obelisk has been made in Santa Rosa, California, completely made out of recycled bikes. Standing 65 feet high, it's just 4 feet short of Cleopatra's Needle. Examples like these show the art and achievement that has gone back into the obelisk, all thanks to Cleopatra's Needle's arrival in 1881.